Hello and welcome to another episode of Career Chat. I am Shannon Crooks, your host, and I am a librarian three with the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. We hope Career Chat inspires you and motivates you to look at a career you may have never thought of before or may have thought of but didn't know exactly how to get started with the career. Maybe you wanted the inside scoop of what it's like to work in that career, and we hope that you get that from our show. You can watch us each and every week on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. We are broadcasted on Facebook and YouTube, and you can see us there if you would like to join us. And today we have Ashlei Stevens with us. Thank you, Ashlei, for joining us.
Thanks, Shannon, for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, and Ashlei Stevens is a reporter, TV host, and media professional. And she's going to tell us about her career today. So, first off, Ashlei, what is a TV host, reporter, and media professional, and what are your job duties and responsibilities?
Great question, because the reality is I'm one woman with one voice that does many things. So I began my career as a reporter. I did internships at a TV station in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I also did internships at a newspaper in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I fell in love with print journalism more at the time. So I began as a print journalism reporter covering education, but I would still do things on camera. For example, hosting web shows for the newspaper, making appearances on the local TV station in Spartanburg, South Carolina, to talk about education and entertainment news, and creating web shows that talked about talented students in the area. So I was always still finding a way to be on camera, even though I was a newspaper reporter.
Mhm.
And my career has evolved over time. After I left reporting, I ended up working in education policy for the governor of South Carolina. So that was a lot of writing, more like a communications type of role.
Mhm.
So my daytime career for many years now, for I guess roughly 10 years now, has been communications. So that means I help write speeches, write talking points, write press releases. I help, I'm on the other side now where I get stories placed in the media on behalf of a company or a government agency. Um, and then on the side, I still use my voice. I have my own web show where I talk about pop culture and politics and Black interest news, particularly HBCU news, which is of interest to me because I spent a lot of my career in communications at UNCF, United Negro College Fund.
Mhm.
And I also am a professional voice artist. So people will hire me to say, hey, I want to use your voice for my company's voice message or for our webinar or for church announcements or for a commercial. And then I also am an event MC. So I kind of hype up the crowd and kind of keep the program going during events. And last but not least, I'm a youth speaker. So through my work with UNCF over the years, I still speak to teen girls about self-empowerment and college readiness. So those are just some of the many ways that I use my voice, speaking, and writing skills across many areas.
Wow. So I see here on this photograph, you were on CNN. That is a major news network. So how did you get this position, or how did you come across this?
Yes. So the thing about being, I guess, an all-encompassing media professional is that your career can really take you in so many different avenues. As I've mentioned, working in the professional communication space, I did media relations for a company called the Professional Services Council. And what PSC does, they're based in Arlington, Virginia, and they are essentially the voice, the leading trade association for federal government contractors. So the clip that you see here from CNN was taken at the very top of 2019. At that time, the US was undergoing its most historic government shutdown,
Mhm.
where certain government agencies were closed because they were waiting on full funding from Congress.
Mhm.
And so there was this long debate between Congress and the White House on, when they were going to get funded and reopen.
Mhm.
So that impacted federal government contractors because once the government shutdown ends, government employees are always going to get their money. They're always going to get their back pay. But historically, federal contractors who essentially do the same type of work, they do not receive back pay. So on this clip on CNN, I had the pleasure to be interviewed by Don Lemon, who I love and have watched over the years. I was advocating for the need and the urgency for contractors to be treated equally and to receive back pay.
Mhm.
So that was a really cool opportunity. The shutdown lasted so long that our association, and my job as media relations director, My job was to send out press releases and to garner press attention. So we had interviews on MSNBC, NBC News, Swiss TV. There were international outlets that were interested in what we were doing. So our media presence expanded essentially because of that one topic. And it was my job as media relations director to get the word out and to serve as company spokesperson.
Wow, very cool. So I see you fell in love with news at an early age. So tell us more about that.
I did, as you can see here, this is 2020. I fell in love with news at a very, very early age, watching Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters every Friday night at 10 o'clock on ABC's 2020. Even in high school, I grew up in Lexington, South Carolina. I was in the marching band, but after the football games, I would come home and I would park myself in front of the TV if I was home in time to make sure that I watched 2020. I was fascinated with the news. I was fascinated with how they put stories together. And they told it was a mix of things that were urgent and pressing, breaking news, but also features and stories about people doing good things in the community. And Barbara Walters and Hugh, they're some of the first faces that I saw on television, in addition to some local news anchors in Columbia, South Carolina, Carolyn Sawyer being one of the first Black women I remember seeing on TV, in addition to Oprah. And I knew in high school that I wanted to become a reporter.
Wow, very cool. Let me go to the next slide. So tell us about your educational background, Ashley.
Sure, sure. So I earned 2 degrees from Winthrop University, which is also in South Carolina. It's in Rock Hill, which is close to Charlotte. I earned a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication. So again, my concentration was broadcast journalism because I knew I wanted to be a reporter. And I also earned a dual degree in modern languages, focusing in Spanish. By the time I'd gotten to college, I already had enough credits to almost have half of my coursework completed to receive a degree because I had taken advanced coursework in Spanish. I'd also, in college, had an incredible opportunity to study in Spain for a summer as well. So it was my goal in broadcast journalism to become the first Black woman in South Carolina to anchor a newscast in Spanish. Now, that didn't quite happen, but I definitely used my Spanish skills throughout my reporting career. And even in high school, I know some of the viewers that may be watching, maybe high school students that have jobs. I worked at Kmart for years in high school, and I was the only staff member that spoke Spanish. So I was able to speak to a lot of our customers who did not speak English or spoke very limited English to help them out. And that helped beef up my skills. So yes, I went to Winthrop on a track scholarship, track and field. So I encourage my student athletes that your talents on and off the field can help you get money for college as well. And that's where I earned my degrees.
Wow. So do you feel like someone who wants to pursue this career should try to major in mass communication when they go to college, or is there other majors that they should consider?
That's a great question. And so I think if you'd like to start out as a reporter, your best bet is definitely to study journalism. That's just the hard nuts and bolts of how to write, reporting, how to edit. Writing is key. You got to be able to write and able to translate that into speaking in case you want to do on-camera work. But journalism also encompasses a lot of off-camera roles as well. There's production. There are people who help put the stories together. Again, those require sharp writing skills. So yes, I'd encourage anyone to have a degree in communications or journalism. But when we think about some of the folks that we see on TV that we may see often and regularly, they might not have had a journalism career, but they have an on-camera presence. For example, there are a lot of folks that you may see that are legal analysts. Think about Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN. I don't think he studied journalism because he's actually a practicing medical professional, but he has a TV presence. So I'd say that there are also different avenues to end up perhaps as an on-camera expert. There are a lot of attorneys and lawyers you see that are legal experts. Like I said, Dr. Gupta is a medical expert. Dr. Fauci, he's a career, health professional, but you see him a lot giving commentary. So I think the avenue that you choose, you never know, it can end up having a tie to journalism. But if you want to report, studying journalism is, I think, the nuts and bolts, your best bet.
So teenagers that are in high school, maybe they want to do journalism and reporting. What should they do in high school, or what recommendations do you have for them?
Great question. And my best advice is start where you are. I guess when I was in high school, we definitely still had a hard copy student newspaper and a hard copy student a yearbook. I say hard copy because by the time I got to college, the notion of a hard copy yearbook even faded away. And there was like a CD. I'm sure the students watching this may not know what a CD is, but there was a CD version of our yearbook that had pictures and highlights and things. So I encourage students, if you have either a tangible student newspaper or a digital one, maybe your high school has an app. Your high school might have a mobile app. Get involved where you can to be a newsmaker or a storyteller on your campus. Let's say your high school might not have those opportunities. Create one. Maybe you can work with the administration to start a blog, or say, hey, I want to work with the district office to help contribute a student profile or a student feature where you go out and interview a student or a really cool teacher once a month and say, hey, I want this to be a part of the district's website. And also your community. Start where you are in your community. If you have a church that may have announcements, or they may have a newsletter, start by volunteering there. A lot of churches have social media ministries, and social media is huge. And that's an incredible avenue for young people watching to get involved, because they're likely always on their phones. Yeah. So take what's in your hand and start there. I was a member living in the DMV area. I love to go to First Baptist Church, and I was a member of First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, and they have an incredible announcements ministry. And that's something I was very involved in when I lived in New York for many years at First Corinthian Baptist Church, as I was over what's called the Live in 5 announcements. So we would put together a 5-minute newscast where we would talk about all the hot happenings in the church going on that week, that month. We were always looking for volunteers, folks to do things. So yeah, start where you are in your school and your community to be a newsmaker and a storyteller.
Wow. Excellent advice.
Mm-hmm.
So did you work for these two publications?
I did. So as I mentioned, in college at Winthrop, studying journalism, studying and having a degree, I will say, is fantastic, and you should do it, but you really shouldn't stop there. If this is the field you want to go into, internships are key. The reality is, when you get out of college, particularly in the journalism field, having your degree on paper is incredibly symbolic. It shows that you completed the coursework. But if you didn't write for the student newspaper or work for this campus TV station or have internships, if you don't have any actual tangible clips to show for yourself, it doesn't mean the degree doesn't mean anything, but it means it will mean a lot more, because it shows you applied yourself while you were in college, that you were serious about the field. So I'd encourage anybody watching to ensure you work with your professors, because they have relationships to try to apply for and land internships, either in print journalism, which is, newspaper or online, or in broadcast, which is television, radio, multimedia. So I was delighted when I graduated from Winthrop. I had the chance and the opportunity to intern at the New York Times in New York City. And I was so excited. I'm from South Carolina. I had never been to New York before. My dad flew up with me. I got to stay on the campus of NYU. And they put me on the education desk. And so I took the train to different parts of the city, and I covered education stories. And sometimes my reporting pieces would feed into larger pieces by very established reporters. But I did have some published pieces in the New York Times as an intern. From there, after my internship, I came back to South Carolina and was blessed to be able to start my first newspaper job at the Spartanburg Herald-Journal in South Carolina, making not much more than $20,000 a year. Yes, journalism may not pay you much to begin with, but you stick with it and you never know where it could lead to. But yes, I worked for many years as a reporter at the Herald-Journal in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Wow. Wow, some people, I'm glad you brought that up, because some people, will see the dollar sign and say, hey, that's not what I wanted to make. I've been to school, and they turn it down, but you never know where that opportunity could lead you. It could land you the next, position up. You can make more money later. You can, hone your skills. So viewers, if you're listening, try not to turn down opportunities, because you never know where it may lead you. It could lead you to the next level or the next step or the next person that could elevate you.
So. I agree. I completely agree with you, Shannon. I do. And after I did journalism for a while, I said, you know what, I kind of want to do something different. So in May of 2008, I began a role as education policy advisor to South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford. So there I am with Governor Sanford. We were at an education briefing where I was responsible for writing the education sections of the budget. Again, so the writing skills came into play.
Mhm.
And I did that for a year, again, '08, '09. If anyone may remember, even our younger viewers, that was when we had a really, really bad recession.
Mhm.
A lot of states were losing money at the time. The federal government was offering stimulus money. South Carolina was one of the states that did not want to take the stimulus. So I remember physically going and sitting in court when the governor had to, be, essentially forced to take the stimulus money to help the state's budget bounce back.
Mhm.
And so I did that for a year, and it was a very taxing job. I mean, when you report to a government agency head, you're on call for that person at all hours. And I mean that literally and figuratively.
Mhm.
So the job was, I thought it was rewarding because I was one of the only Black staff members on Governor Sanford's immediate staff.
Mhm.
But, I said, as I'm doing this in a very challenging budget year, I still knew that I wanted to do the broadcast journalism piece that I never really sank my teeth into. And I
Mhm.
said, I've always kind of wanted to be on camera, and I want to host my own talk show.
Mhm.
So I remember the incredible experience I had when I interned in New York, 4 years prior. And
Mhm.
so on June 9th, 2009, I resigned from the governor's office. I bought a one-way ticket to New York City, and I
Mhm.
didn't come back for several years.
Wow, one-way ticket. I can't
One-way ticket.
imagine. What,
Yeah.
how did you know? Like, did you have a job when you got there lined up for you, or
I
what
did not. And we could actually talk a little bit about that in some of the next slides in terms of kind of what I had to consider to make that move. So to chart my path in being a talk show host, I had to determine what the risk was going to be, then how that was going to turn into a reward, and then what those results were going to be. So if we
Wow.
can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So the risk obviously was not having a job. I was leaving as one of the only Black staff members at that time for the governor's office.
Mhm.
No job. So it was a high profile position.
Mhm.
And again, during the world's modern day worst recession, no job,
Mhm.
limited savings.
Mhm.
Going to New York, I didn't have any family there. Everybody's in South Carolina. Few
Mhm.
friends. There were literally about 3 friends from Winthrop University that I knew. That
Mhm.
was about it. So that was a huge risk, going to a new city, limited money to pursue my dreams, and just kind of with the risk of falling on my face.
That takes guts.
It
Oh my
did.
goodness.
It did. It did.
Wow.
It did. But I knew, taking guts meant that there could be a reward. So that
Mhm.
was living in the nation's biggest city, exposure to new ideas and cultures, meeting new people every day, and living my dreams. One of the things I loved about New York when I interned is that on every single corner, there's a different type of experience. I can
Mhm.
go out one day and get Peruvian food. For dinner, I can go have Ethiopian. Then I can go have real, authentic Italian in Little Italy.
Mhm.
Then I could go have Mexican or American. And there was just so much to see and taste and experience in New York, and it was such a different experience than from South Carolina. And I was open to that being one of the rewards of moving up there.
Mm. Wow.
hmm And
Wow.
then there's the reward as well. Once you move, you just know you never know where literally the glass ceiling can take you. So in some of these pictures, I'm on one of the top floors in the middle of Manhattan. Um, as you can see, some of the famous buildings there behind me. This is again 2009, so the towers were already gone. But one of the views in the middle was kind of looking from the Wall Street angle.
Wow.
So yes, I took the risk and I had great reward. On the picture there, it says, "Be free, live life, laugh often, forgive easily, and embrace each new day with gratitude."
Mhm. Wow.
So I did have reward in making the move to New York.
Are these photographs where you were living once you got there?
No, these are photographs of work meetings. So long story short, once I moved, I did pursue my dreams of hosting a talk show. I began my own talk show. I just had I ended up realizing I did have family in New York, which I didn't know. I had family in upstate, and I had a cousin who was
Mhm.
beginning an online video network. And I said, you know what? I'm here to host my talk show. Give me the microphone. Let's hit the streets. We started going to film festival premieres, music artist shows,
Mhm.
different types of festivals, interviewing anybody and everyone that would listen to us. And we did that for 4 years and really got some big name interviews out of it.
Wow.
So no, when I first moved, I crashed on a friend's couch in Long Island. And I'm thankful to that friend to this day for about 2 months before I
Mhm.
got temporary work. And I found an apartment with 4 girls in Queens.
Mhm.
One of the girls spoke no English. She was Korean, beautiful roommate. But that just goes to show you people from all over. We all had different life experiences. We were all in this apartment in Queens with no air conditioning during a really hot summer and really cold winters. So no, those are pictures. Once I ended up getting a stable daytime job with UNCF, these were meetings that we had at a law firm that overlooked the city.
Wow, beautiful view.
Mm-hmm. So
Wow.
yes, so there I am. The top is my logo from the show that I had with my cousin Corey. It's called DPVN Entertainment. My brothers created an awesome theme show music for me. So like I said, there I was with DPVN in the bottom left corner. I'm interviewing Megan Good, the actress,
Wow.
and Kim Fields next to her.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we had some incredible experiences getting to meet. I mean, our goal was to really highlight independent artists and filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
But even in doing that, we ended up getting to meet some pretty big name people as well.
Wow, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Gabrielle
Yes, so
Sidibe.
yes, Gabrielle Sidibe. And at the time, Precious, the film, had not long come out when I got to meet Gabrielle. So that was pretty awesome. At the bottom there is two very distinguished Tuskegee Airmen. And I thought it was really cool to meet them and interview them. And one's the famous Dr. Roscoe Brown, actually, who lived a very, very long and rewarding life, and just two incredible gentlemen. And
Oh.
we can't forget my favorite gospel artist, Fred Hammond. And I just tell you what, that made moving to New York like the dream come true. Like getting to interview Fred. He was coming to perform at an event in Harlem, at a gospel event. And like I said, I had my own show. It's nothing we got paid for. We just hit the streets with the microphone and just asked for doors to be open, and they were. And there
Wow.
was Fred. There was
Wow.
Fred. That's one of
So
the highlights,
cool.
literally, of my life, was getting to talk to him. He was so cool.
Wow. Do you still do this show now to this day?
I do not do DPVN Entertainment anymore. So we did it for about 4 years. Then
Mhm.
it opened other doors to other opportunities. So as you mentioned to this, to young people watching earlier,
Mhm.
you may start somewhere, but you never know where it could take you. So
Mhm.
some of the next slides, I'll show you where hosting my own show ended up leading to.
Oh.
So I ended up getting and receiving. I got an audition and actually got the job for a TV show on Time Warner Cable called Born to Shine. So
Mhm.
DPVN, my own show, was on the internet. It was on the web. Born to Shine was my first nationally televised talk show, and I mean that's what I came to New York to do. So in this picture, I'm interviewing Neo,
Mhm.
and it was really cool to meet him. We had a live studio audience. We taped at what some viewers remember is called 106 in Park. It's actually a
Yeah.
location. It's actually a filming studio. So we taped
Oh,
at 106 in Park in New York.
wow.
And we had an all Black cast of writers, producers, directors, set designer. That the whole intent was for Black and brown people to create this show that
Mhm.
highlighted African Americans in the entertainment industry. So I got to talk to Robert Townsend. um, Tyson Beckford was on our show. Rockman Dunbar was on our show. I got to interview Estelle. Kim Fields, I actually got to interview Kim Fields again. And she remembered when I'd spoken to her for my web show. So
Wow.
Born to Shine was really cool. So that aired on television across the country for Time Warner Cable subscribers
Mhm.
in 2011, 2012.
Mhm.
And then the other photo here is, of course, the gorgeous Michelle Williams,
Mhm.
Destiny's Child.
Mhm.
This opportunity came about after Born to Shine. I was asked to host a web show for Uptown Magazine.
Mhm.
Uptown was created by the founders of Vibe Magazine. And
Mhm.
so I hosted an entertainment-based talk show for them for a year or so. I got to interview Michelle Williams, Fabulous, Joe Morton, AKA Papa Pope,
Mhm.
Mac Wilds, Rotimi,
Mm.
who I know at that time was just starting as an actor, but is definitely doing his thing as a musician now. Hill Harper,
Mm.
um, Bevy, got to interview Bevy. So yeah, had a fantastic time. Like I said, as the talk shows progressed, meeting some really, really cool people.
Wow. Mm. Mm.
And another way, I guess, that I've continued just to thankfully be able to use my voice is through speaking. And so this is like the highlight of what I do. To me, it's the highlight of what I do is getting to go around the country before COVID,
Mhm.
and speak on behalf of UNCF's Empower Me Tour. So it's a traveling college readiness expo where students get to learn about HBCUs. There's a lot of HBCU representatives on site they actually offer on-site admissions and scholarships. So we have a big scholarship, a Better Future celebration at the end where thousands and thousands of dollars are awarded to students on site
Mhm.
to attend select HBCUs. So you can see me there with young women of all backgrounds.
Mhm.
And our session really focuses on being the best person that you can be
Mhm.
before you enter college. So we talk about body image, we talk about hair.
Mhm.
My Black is Beautiful, as you can see, are the t-shirts, because one of the sponsors is Procter and Gamble, and that's a platform they created more than 10 years ago to celebrate the beauty of Blackness.
Mhm.
And we just talk about just empowering yourself, having positive sisterhoods, positive friendships,
Mhm.
now in high school and middle school, so that you can have some pretty good balance, regarding those things when you get to college.
Wow. Awesome. So tell us about these photos here.
So these photos, so this is kind of, this means that at this point, I'm still in New York and I'm doing
Mhm.
the talk show work on the side, but I had to pay bills, had to pay rent, I had to eat. So I needed work. Um, and so thankfully, I began working with UNCF, United Negro College Fund, as I mentioned. I began working with them in 2011. So 2 years after I moved to New York, I started working with UNCF. I had
Mhm.
some little temporary jobs in between.
Okay.
Um, but I started as an executive assistant at UNCF, and they didn't want to hire me because they said I was overqualified. Having been a reporter and education advisor, I said, listen, I need an opportunity. I
Mhm.
said, promise you. And I knew it wasn't going to pay much, but I needed I needed something at that time. And they
Mhm.
gave me a chance. And I
Mhm.
thankfully was able to work up to being a development associate, which is like a fundraiser for UNCF, which is their mission to fundraise for HBCUs and their member colleges.
Mhm.
And then I ultimately got a promotion with UNCF to be communications manager and one of their spokespeople. So that moved me to DC in 2015. So the
Okay.
photos you see here are actually probably around 2016, 2017,
Mhm.
where I'm sitting down and again, using my interviewing and talk show reporting skills with UNCF. So here we have Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, the president of Spelman College.
Mhm.
We're talking about a career program.
Mhm.
And in the other photo, the now retired president of Claflin University, Dr. Henry Tisdale, they're both truly just gems and incredible people who have, especially Dr. Tisdale, spent his life and career at Claflin before he retired.
Mhm.
But yes, so I say that to folks watching. Um, I may not have continued day to day or have like a regular daytime talk show that I woke up to do every single day, but I
Mhm.
was still able to use those skills and my passion to incorporate it into the work I was doing at the time.
Mhm.
So I was still able to, do interviews
Mhm.
and put those on UNCF's, YouTube channel,
Mhm.
to highlight the work of UNCF and HBCUs.
Mhm. And I like the fact that you told UNCF, hey, I need an opportunity right now. I'm willing to, start at the bottom. And yeah, I may be overqualified, but I still want to join your organization. I want to, work here. I want to um, bring my skill set here, even though it's not in a higher position. Just give me a chance. A lot of people right now are in between jobs because of the
Yeah,
pandemic, and they may be looking at jobs and say, yes, I need something right now. And people may be saying to them the same thing, you're overqualified. And viewers, I'm here to tell you it's okay for you to say, hey, I want this opportunity. I want to be here. I'm okay with bringing the skill set that I have and in a lower position. I'm willing to do the work. And a lot of times employers will admire you for that and they will bring you on. So
absolutely.
keep that in mind if you're struggling to find a position right now.
I agree. And Shannon, I'd say to that point, just to bounce off of that notion is um, that to me, that's the notion of, stay ready so you won't have to get ready. Definitely humble
Mhm.
yourself and ask, even if you think the position may be beneath where you used to being. I know a lot of folks are in hard times right now due to the pandemic. So like I said, you have not because you ask not. So at least ask because you don't know. I started as an admin assistant and moved up many
Mhm.
times and
Mhm.
then had the flexibility to do what I actually desired, which was doing media interviews on
Mhm.
behalf of UNCF and now public speaking and youth motivational speaking on their behalf as well. So I'll give one more example of the beauty of having the opportunity to work with UNCF and being ready kind of at all times.
Mhm.
UNCF used to have an annual show called An Evening of Stars. Many years ago, for some folks who may be watching remember, it was called Lou Rawls' Parade of Stars. So Lou Rawls used to host this UNCF, literally a traditional telethon where people would dial in and make their pledge to give money. And then in more recent years, it became an Evening of Stars, most frequently hosted by Anthony Anderson, and had musical guests and student scholarship awards. So back in maybe 2012 or so, we were taping an Evening of Stars in California. And I expressed interest at that time. I was still, again, maybe an admin executive assistant, but I expressed interest to the head of communications at UNCF at that time. Hey, I would love if I could fly out to California to do some on-camera interviews for UNCF. And they agreed, but because it was my own thing, I was on my own dime. I flew out to California, and again, I'm an exec assistant, so I'm not making that much in New York City, which is already expensive. Thankfully, stayed with a coworker and got there only to be told, well, Ashlei, we appreciate your zeal and your vigor and your interest, but BET is here and they're going to do the backstage red carpet interviews with the guests. And I was so discouraged. I had a cute purple dress I'd bought and I was looking forward to doing interviews. And I thought, I paid my own money to get out here and I have no purpose here. I called my parents. They cheered me up and encouraged me. They said, you're there. At least go help the students, rehearse their lines and get ready. I said, you're right. So I showed up backstage, put on my best face. Still put on the pretty purple dress. Actually, I think I was going to wear a gown, but because I knew I wasn't hosting, I just put on like a nice cocktail dress, went backstage to talk to the students and make sure that they were good and they knew that they knew what their lines were for their on stage scholarship presentations. Lo and behold, someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, you want to do interviews, right? I said, yes. And she said, here, and she stuck a microphone in my hand. The BET host was late and they had to get started with interviews. I therefore had the opportunity to proceed to do interviews for BET for the event. I talked to Shaka Khan, Keenan Ivory Waynes, Loretta Devine, Usher, Terrence J, Tyrese, Melanie Fiona, and several more artists just because I was there and ready and present. So that opportunity that I thought was for me fell through, but something even better came about. So I say that to say, stick with whatever you're doing and just always show up with the best face, best attitude. Just be ready because you never know when your time could come.
Yes, great point. Be ready and stay ready. Wow.
Yes.
Because you never know. Wow.
Never know.
So awesome. So I see here you give commentary for criminal cases. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So for any true crime fans out there, I've been on TV1's top rated true crime show, Fatal Attraction, for probably 5 or 6 seasons. So that started when I first moved to DC in 2015, and it came about in an interesting way. I actually, as a reporter, there was a case that I covered in Union, South Carolina, with a beloved high school student that unfortunately had been murdered. And I knew her family very well, so that the whole case was very, very tough and very emotional. So it seemingly was out of the blue that I got a call from the production company, and that was back in 2008. So in 2015, years later, I got a call from production company that said, hey, we create episodes of Fatal Attraction. We're creating an episode on this case that we covered. We found all of these articles you wrote about this young lady and about the case. Can we bring you on camera to talk about it? And again, she was a teenager, so I knew it was very sensitive. I said, I will talk only if her family agrees to it. Okay. And so at the time, her family did not. So I pulled out, and I think some of the other experts, like some folks who work with the police department, they pulled out as well. So they kind of didn't have an episode. But again, mind you, the thing about journalism and reporting is, especially with criminal cases, any police records that are filed, that's all public record. So anyone could go request those files and still create their own story with the public record information. They just may not have someone who was tied to the case to speak about it. So that was the end of 2015. 6 months later, get another call. Hey, Ashlei, we have some family members who are willing to talk. Will you come back? I said, tell me who they are. And so long story short, I ended up coming back to tape for a case that I actually covered, a murder case that I actually covered. From there, the production company said, you have a great on-camera presence. We'd like to invite you back to take more episodes. So long story short, I would offer commentary on various criminal cases on TV1. I also did a few episodes of Snapped. There's also a show called Killer Couples, I think on Investigation Discovery. So yes, I've had quite a history on the true crime shows for a few years now. So it's interesting because some people will see me or recognize my voice. I think they use my voice sometimes in commercials on the radio. And sometimes I don't even know, episodes repeat and come on and I don't even know sometimes that they're coming on. Wow. So yes, that's again, another avenue I never saw coming, never saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
And true crime is it's a very, very popular genre. I know it's not for everybody, so I don't encourage you to watch if you're not into sensitive nature of true crime, but there's a whole audience for it.
Yes, very popular. Okay, tell us about this letter and photograph.
Yeah, so as a media professional, as I mentioned to you, once I came to DC in 2015 to work in communications with UNCF, I was one of their senior communications managers. So this meant that I was responsible for writing press statements and sending them out to media and booking interviews for for our CEO and other leaders. And so once I booked an interview, that means I had to get all the information I could from the reporter and
Mhm,
then prep the president and CEO of UNCF and say, hey, here's what they're going to ask you. Here's some talking points I think that you should mention that we want to get our message out there.
mhm,
So that was my job in communications. And I also worked with an incredible young lady who did social media for UNCF, and we
mhm,
would create messaging and images for UNCF.
mhm,
I'll give you a very real-time example. Most recently, we lost Hank Aaron, who was a baseball legend, but he and his wife were longtime supporters of UNCF and HBCUs. So
mhm,
in moments like that, we're able to post a picture as tribute to say, hey, as we're thinking of the family of Mr. Hank Aaron, we want to recognize that he donated millions to HBCUs. So that was the cool thing about working there is I could always kind of in a jiffy kind of be able to post something about an artist or an entertainer that related to their work to support Black colleges. So in
mhm,
the image here, there's a screenshot of a press release that I wrote that says UNCF member presidents meet with President Trump in the Oval Office. Vice President Pence and Education Secretary DeVos participate in, it probably says several listening sessions.
oh,
So this was February 27th, 2017. This famous picture here is
mhm,
where the nation's Black college presidents, and as we see Kellyanne Conway sitting on the couch,
mhm,
that picture definitely made the rounds.
mhm,
And a lot of folks were upset that, well, why would Black college presidents meet with Trump? He doesn't even support Black people. That was a hot topic back then. And so around that time at UNCF, I had a lot of interest from national media, political media, in addition to higher education media. I mean, we heard from folks during that time that UNCF had probably never heard from because that whole visit to the Trump White House was such a big deal. So that was part of my role, is that I got to go to some congressional hearings with Black college presidents at that time. And I would take pictures, I would set up media interviews for UNCF's president and for other HBCU presidents. So that's a cool part of kind of my media relations job, was
mhm.
getting to be in the mix of politics.
Yeah, wow. Very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Okay. So you work for the Census Bureau.
I
Uh,
did.
the library has a great relationship with this year and in previous years in trying to get people to complete the census. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So up until recently, up until about 3 months ago, I definitely did work in media relations with the U.S. Census Bureau. I worked for a PR agency,
Mhm,
BCW Global, and through contracted work, as I remember we talked about earlier, federal government contractors in the shutdown. I
mhm,
worked directly for the U.S. Census Bureau. So in this photo, I am with the most recent U.S. Census Bureau director, Dr. Stephen Dillingham, who, by the way, Shannon, I think you would appreciate, is a Winthrop University graduate. And
Yay.
so he and I both went to, Winthrop many years apart, but I just, he always found that fascinating. So my job in media relations was to book media interviews. We had a whole team of incredible people at BCW who we all collectively, we wrote press releases, we sent those out to press. We did what's called pitching, is where we picked up the phone. Hey, Jim Acosta, I would love, I'd love for your news outlet to come and cover this briefing that the Census Bureau is doing. So we would pitch. So picking up the phone, talking to reporters, emailing them, following up to see if they were interested in coverage or interviewing one of our Census Bureau officials. So in this picture here, um, we were at an event in Ohio. I was prepping him for media interviews with some Black radio stations in Ohio to talk about the importance of census, particularly to Black families, which are undercounted, and particularly young children, which are
Mhm,
historically undercounted in the census.
mhm,
And so that was my job, was to book interviews for him and to prep him for those interviews. I also was responsible sometimes for writing talking points for him,
mhm.
and even writing speeches for him that he gave.
Mm,
And in the really fun picture with the cat in the hat, again, that was
mhm,
a similar event in Ohio where there were hundreds of children who came to the Great Lakes Science Center. So they had a day of fun and science related activities, But the crux of it was so those families could learn about the importance of taking the census, because oftentimes young children under ages 5 are miscounted or they're not counted at all in many households. And that's what we wanted to draw attention to. So
Mhm.
we had the Cat in the Hat and some other Sesame Street characters there as well to help draw attention to that. So I get to have fun on my job in addition to, informing the masses, which is really what media relations is all about. And I
Wow.
currently now work for another great company based in Silver Spring, Maryland, and they do public health consulting, technical assistance, and I do communications work for them as well, and enjoy that. The Maya
Okay.
Tech Corporation.
Yeah, that the census work is so vital and important to the survival of libraries and for other nonprofit organizations. So, viewers, if you're watching when the census comes back around again, please make sure you complete it. It is very important because thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars go into libraries. And I know you love the services that we provide. So, please make sure you complete your census. Very important work, Ashley.
Very important, Shannon, that you mentioned that. You're right. The census data determines a lot of community planning funds for schools, school lunches, especially now we've been in COVID and a lot of schools have continued to provide meals. Census
Mhm.
dollars inform public health, emergency funds, healthcare, hospitals, roads, and bridges. So, yeah, taking the census is vitally important.
Mhm. So you do voiceovers.
I do. I'm a voice artist for commercials and audiobooks. So this might be a video. I'm not sure if it will play, but maybe we can include a link for the folks that are watching.
Yeah.
This is a DC government PSA regarding paid family medical leave, and which is an incredibly important program that they've begun. So you can hear my voice featured talking about the importance of this program. Yeah,
Wow. We'll
yeah.
definitely include a link to that. So how do you become a voice artist? I know you do audiobooks, which is the new thing right now, the hottest thing on the market. So how do you get into that?
Excellent question, Shannon. As I mentioned earlier to the young people watching, once you're in one avenue, you never know where it can take you.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of it started when I was doing my own web show in New York.
Mhm.
I would kind of, people would hear my voice and say, "Hey, can we get you to do a plug or like, just a little voice message for my artist website?
Mhm.
Hey, I want to get you to do something." Like I said, the church announcements was a big thing. First Corinthian is a huge an incredibly impactful church in the community
Mhm.
in New York. They're in Harlem. And so, I kind of got involved there doing the announcements. First, it was written. We did the written, we would design the program and bulletin for each Sunday. Then we converted into, hey, let's actually give viewers something to listen to and then something they can watch.
Mhm.
So little by little, once you are out there and people hear your voice, they can invite you to do other things. So I did have an incredible opportunity in the summer of 2020, and the book was released this past fall to do an audio book for a very well-known mental health therapist, Asha Terry,
Mhm.
and it's pretty cool. It's a self-help guide for millennials, actually, which you should check it out. So
Okay.
yeah. Again, once you do one thing, you never know the doors that could open.
Wow. Okay. So tell us about this Dr. Seuss quote.
Yes, I just want to encourage anyone watching here. Oh, the places you go. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're
Mhm.
on your own and you know what you know, and you are the one who decide where to go. So,
Mhm.
really, the power rests with you to determine how you will fulfill your purpose and your dreams. And the best thing, like I said, is to get started where you are. Find courses, find training. Maybe you've already finished college. Maybe there's some certificates, or online training programs you can find in the field that you're interested in. You know
Mhm.
what? Maybe you want interested in reporting and you do it. I've had other mentees that tried, they said, you know what? I tried to do on-camera reporting and I didn't like it. I said, you know what? That's okay, because now you know. Sometimes you don't know until you try, and that's why internships are important. Then
Mhm.
they were able to pivot to do something different, like communications or sales or production, which is behind the camera.
Mhm.
You never know where your career can take you. I'm very grateful. I thank God I've been able to do the things I've been able to do. And I always like to share a personal testimony, if that's okay, Shannon, with
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
please use the gifts and the talents that you have while you have them, because you nothing in this life is guaranteed.
Mhm.
In the summer of 2018, I had a very bad bout with strep throat, lost my voice for about 2 weeks. And after the strep cleared up, my voice did not come back. for months.
Wow.
And speaking is what I do. I was recording webinars. Obviously, I tape the crime shows.
Mhm.
I was doing voice work. I could not talk. I could not force out a whisper. And it took months to determine health-wise what was going on. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that we got it resolved. But spiritually during that time, God told me that once he restored my voice, I'd have even more opportunities to speak than ever before. And it was definitely the case because by the top of 2019, CNN happened to come about. Only had a few hours to get ready for CNN because again, the shutdown was happening in real time. They
Mhm.
called and said, we need someone on Don Lemon at 11:30 tonight.
Mhm.
And there I was in my magnificent, my black is beautiful, big natural hair.
Mhm.
Like I said, stay ready, show up how you are, right?
Mhm.
And I had actually been told earlier in my career that my big natural hairstyles were probably limiting me from getting on camera jobs. So like I said, God always has the last say
Mhm.
and will make space and room for you
Mhm.
when you're really using your talents to your best abilities. So I'm grateful. I'm just able to talk again. I've
Mhm.
been able to have a lot of MC engagements all across 2019 and 2020. Well, now that COVID is here, obviously things are different with virtual events, but thankfully people still reach out. So I can be like a virtual event MC, still speak to youth and teens. And I'm available to do that to anyone listening and do voice work because it's something I can do from home as
Okay.
we sit here. Here's my microphone. So I've got, my setup here at the house. And
Mhm.
like I said, start where you are, start with what you have, write out what you want to do and map out a plan on how to get there. Like I said, you never know. We're just getting started. You never know where you'll end up.
Yes, so true. And you mentioned something about hair. That's something that I've watched over the years, especially African American women on TV. Now, in this, 2020 and really 2019 is when I started seeing them wear their natural hairstyles. And I know that was an issue for reporters before. So, can you tell us a little bit about, your experience with that or things you've seen throughout your career?
Absolutely. So I was in college in the very early 2000s and doing internships then. Very much straight hair and shorter hairstyles were very much in, particularly for Black women.
Hmm.
But even then, I always had an affinity. I consider myself a child of like the 1970s, even though I wasn't around then. But I've always loved afros. I've
Hmm.
always loved big, natural, curly hairstyles and afros, and I've always attempted to have that look in some form or fashion.
Hmm.
And so, even in my years at the newspaper, um, and actually, I go back to college. I used to intern at a news station in Charlotte at a Fox news station. I would still wear my hair curly.
Hmm.
And but they liked my commentary enough. I actually had a televised segment called Ranting on the Edge. So I would talk about issues that were hot and popping to college students in the early 2000s
Mhm,
because they took a chance on me, right? Sometimes that's what it takes. But
mhm,
once I started working at the newspaper and I would still apply to television news jobs and send out back then to the young people, we actually had VHS tapes. Y'all might not know what that is, but a VHS goes in a VCR,
mhm,
sending out actual tapes.
mhm,
Again, I had curly hair and I had other women in the television industry say, Ashley, your hairstyle could be holding you back. They prefer straight and relaxed looks.
mhm,
And I'm sure that I could have done that to quote unquote conform, but it just wasn't who I was. I was doing big natural hairstyles long before it became like, the popular thing to do. And I'm so glad to see it. I'm so glad that America and the corporate world has now embraced and now legally in certain states with the Crown Act cannot discriminate against
mhm,
natural hairstyles. So I love that too.
mhm.
But yeah, I've always wanted to just be authentically who I was. And I think you can do that in a multitude of hairstyles. You can do it with no hair. Look at Ayanna Presley out here
Mhm.
changing the world in Congress and
Yeah.
is just as beautiful as she wants to be and is embracing, even through her health challenges, just the beauty that she has. And she's transparent about that. So whether no hair or locks or short hair or bob or braids, wig, weave, straight, curly, whatever it is, just be authentically you.
Mhm.
And that's what I think when I made the CNN appearance, some people said, wow, like, did you do your hair like that for CNN? I said, no, I was working all day. We were hopping to different interviews all day. I had only a handful of hours to get ready. That's how I showed up because that's who I was.
Mm,
And one more example I'll give you, Shannon,
mhm,
and to the viewers is when I did the show for Time Warner Cable, like I
mm,
said, the one we taped at 106 in Park,
mhm,
um, I was one of 4 hosts selected from a nationwide search.
mhm,
So it was myself and 2 other young ladies and a gentleman. And so we each kind of had unique looks. One young lady had a very crop cut fro, and it was just so cute. Another
Mhm.
young lady from California, she had long, the body, the beach waves, just that was her vibe, and she's beautiful, so it fit her. For
Mhm.
me, I had big curly hair.
Yes.
For the show, they wanted to give me a different look. So they said, Ashley, we're going to give you, they gave me a sew-in, some extensions that were just big and full and kind of barrel curled. They were really long. By the
Mhm.
time we finished, I did not recognize myself. I went back to the set to rehearse our lines.
Mhm.
And literally the other host and the acting coach said, well, where's Ashley? They didn't recognize me because I had this big extravagant
Hair.
hairstyle. And no shade to the artist who did it. She did a beautiful job on my hair. It
Mhm.
just wasn't me. And
Mm.
we quickly determined that after 24 hours.
Mhm.
Literally, the network then said, take it out, start over. They took the entire sew-in out, and I had this big, bountiful, beautiful afro that I got to wear on
Mhm.
Born to Shine. So the clip with Neo, I've got my big curly hair because that's who I was and who I am. And that's the thing be about Black people, we can be who we are and
Yes.
embrace it, no matter what the hairstyle is. And we have the versatility to
Yes.
change our hairstyles as we see fit. So,
Yes. And I've
um,
always loved your curly hair. Even back at Winthrop in our college days, I always admired how you could wear your fro with your curls. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful.
oh,
And yes,
thank you.
that was before natural hairstyles became the it thing, is that a lot of girls were wearing it at that time. And I thought it was
Hmm.
always beautiful. So, yes, be authentically you. So, thank you
That's
for
it.
that.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
let me see if I have any other questions for you. This has been a very good interview. I have never had a reporter or broadcaster on the show before, and it was wonderful to hear your journey, to hear your ups and downs, twists, turns, moving to different areas and just being brave. Throughout this conversation, that's the word that comes to mind, is your bravery of just, going for it. And a lot of our young people, especially now, even adults with the pandemic, I think it's created a sense of fear, of not being brave and going after your dreams. And I hope this show inspires people to try to be more brave and to, go after your dream. There may be hard times, as Ashley has told us. There may be times where you feel like, oh, am I going to make it? Did I make the right decision? But just believing in yourself and be authentically you. I think that was so empowering that you said that throughout our conversation. So, really, you've answered most of the questions that I have. Do you have any other recommendations for the viewers?
No, again, just like I said, if you're in high school, start where you are. Look for opportunities to whatever your craft is, whether it's coding, building apps, designing video games, doing hair, doing nails. Start where you are, build your own little client base where you are. Once you get to college or even technical school or trade school or even the military, whatever you decide to do after high school, again, keep those skills sharp. Find certification courses or classes, and most importantly, internships. Get on the ground experience in whatever you're doing
Mhm.
in that field. And then as a professional, like I said, you may try something for a year or two and say, this isn't really what I'm enjoying. I'm not really feeling it. You can always pivot and try something else. But the thing is, you have those baseline skills, and particularly in journalism, writing is the key. Writing, editing, and ultimately, if you want to be on camera, public speaking are key. And once you have those, you can pivot to any direction that God sees fit.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ashley. The last question is for me. What are some resources the library offers for people who are new to the job market, changing careers, or looking for work due to the COVID-19 emergency? Well, you can visit us at pgcmls.info 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Go to our online library and go to the jobs and careers section. From there, you will see Brain Fuse and Learning Express Library. You can do career assessments, search for jobs, create a resume, get expert feedback from a job coach. There's also resources for any veterans that we have out there, and you can prepare for college or brush up on any job skills. There's also practice tests for college entrance exams, employment and citizenship, and then tutorials and basic skills for math, reading, and writing. So visit us 24 hours a day again at pgcmls.info and use your library card number to access our digital resources. Again,
Awesome.
Ashley, thank you so much. This interview was incredible. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers learned a lot, and you have really opened the doors for people who are interested in going into broadcasting or media.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm very glad. I'm just thankful to be here and still be in the field in however way that I can. Shannon, thank you. Thanks to the library system as well for all you do to help people in meeting their career needs also.
Yes. So tune in with us again next week, 3 p.m. on Wednesday, for another episode of Career Chat. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time. Bye and stay safe.